Welcome everyone, and thank you for coming here. I hope you guys are enjoying all the other talks that is going on over here. I'll be presenting the something that we are developing on the dashboard, which is like the ability to monitor and manage the multiple Ceph clusters from the Ceph dashboard itself. So, yep, let's jump in. A bit about me. I am Nizam. I go Nizamudeen. I go by Nizam. I am a software engineer at IBM. Previously, I used to work at Red Hat, and I have a prior experience in Rook orchestrator. That was like a brief, exposure with the Rook, and then I moved over to the Ceph Dashboard, which is where I have been working for the past 5 years. I was also the component lead or technical lead for the Ceph Dashboard component for about 2 years, and I recently stepped over, and Afreen is now the component lead for Ceph Dashboard. All right, let me take this one. The agenda is pretty much short. I want to present to you folks the multi-cluster, the management, and the monitoring part of it, and how we want to develop, or how we are seeing the multi-cluster management and monitoring in the dashboard going forward. So this is the data that we pulled from the Ceph telemetry. I think if you guys were in the Ceph Days London, that was like happened a few months ago. Ernesto presented this chart over there, but I don't think we need this chart because last 2 days I've been here, and whenever I go into those other talks, right, every users have more than one clusters in their deployment. I think it's the pretty common thing to have more than one clusters. So that's the thing that we are trying to say here, like multi-cluster. Everyone has their own more than one clusters in their local deployment, either in multiple data centers or not. So. And this is like a survey that we did in 2022, I think. Yep. And yeah, I think from the survey it's pretty clear. Like I think about 2 to 5 users or users tend to have more than or about 2 to 5 clusters on their setup. So yeah, I will go into the whole multi-cluster thing. So I think when we proposed, or when this problem came to us, right, the whole multi-cluster management came to us, the whole problem was already known. If there are people who are using Ceph Dashboard, right, I mean, by now you should already know that if you need to monitor or manage more than one clusters at a single time, you'll have to open more than one tab for each of those clusters. That's like and if you have like around 10 or 100 of clusters, right, you will need to go through like 100 windows open out there. So that's like the main problem that we have, and we wanted to also simplify the whole management when it comes to the whole multi-cluster situation and the clear cluster identification. That's something that is already known, the cluster FSID of the Ceph. That's not easily recognizable for someone because it's pretty a random UUID that is generated on every clusters. So if you want to manage or if you want to manage more than one clusters, right, you want to name your cluster better. You want to know which cluster it is, and you want to know if this cluster is used for what purpose actually. So that is something that we are also want to provide to this multi-cluster solution. And with that, we actually provided a baked-in solution inside the Ceph dashboard with that goals, obviously. So the basic philosophy is that the whole thing should be integrated into the dashboard itself, because we don't want to reinvent a new thing. We want to use whatever is existing already there. So that we don't need to work a lot to provide a solution, and in this way that we can also eventually we can also try to make it available for the older clusters, hopefully, so that I think it's pretty common to have users to be on the older versions of Ceph clusters, right? Not on the latest clusters. So if we are reusing the already existing thing that is already there in the RESTful APIs, we can easily make them backward compatible and available in the previous or older clusters. So yeah, name your cluster. We have already added the feature to at least in the multi-cluster view, you have now the ability to name your cluster whenever you are adding to that, adding to the Ceph dashboard. So you are better, or it's clear to you that it's the purpose of that cluster. Yeah, and also the workflows and automation. That's one of the thing that we want to focus on later on or moving forward. We are providing basic management functionality with this implementation, but we want to be more focused. We want to leverage this one when it comes to the whole federation or stuff like the mirroring or multi-site automations and all those things, right? Basically, wherever you can leverage the use of more than one clusters. If you have, well, if you are setting up the Ceph cluster for the first time, right, and you want to configure replication between more than one clusters easily, the idea is to you will have a button that will just open up a form, and there you can select a cluster where you want to actually mirror your data to, and that will make it easier for you to set up the mirroring between each cluster. So that's something that we started working on. I think we already have an implementation for the RJW multi-site workflow automation. So basically, a few clicks, and you will have the multi-site setup, automation setup, a multi-site configuration available for between two different clusters. And also the security, because we don't want to compromise the security. It's already secure. Everything happens through the HTTPS communication, and there are already browser codes rules applied. So we are more following the basic security principle that is followed in the Angular front-end world. And also the tokens that we are providing there, they are like very short-lived. So whenever you add your cluster to one of the, basically if you add your second cluster to your hub dashboard, you can choose how long that cluster needs to be authenticated there. Usually the JWT tokens, they shouldn't be living longer. It should have a short lifespan for more security. So for the convenience of the multi-cluster, the whole monitoring purpose, right? We are providing some customization, so you can choose from 1 day up to 30 days for your token to be staying alive in the whole cycle. And this is a small architecture, kind of like an architecture that I draw. So I think it shows some more or less how it will work like. So you have your first cluster, or what we call as a hub cluster, or your local cluster. So from there, using the Ceph dashboard, the dashboard of that Ceph cluster, you can add the second cluster. So basically, you will need to authenticate. That's what we will do. You will have a form to provide basic details like the URL, the authentication details, and from there you can authenticate your second cluster to the first cluster. And once while the authentication is happening, it also configures or reconfigures the Prometheus to do the federations there. So for the whole metric scraping, we are using the Prometheus federation. I think when the monitoring folks started developing the whole Prometheus part of the, or metrics part of this multi-cluster, they had a choice to either use the Thanos for the whole purpose, or the federation. So at least for the simplicity, they went for the Prometheus federation for now. We have to do scale testings around this one, how federation is actually behaving when it comes to if you have more than 10 clusters, and if you are constantly pushing metrics to this back and forth, right? So That's something we are planning to do probably later on, but for now, the whole thing goes through the Prometheus federation. And that's what it is like. The whole thing works by leveraging the Ceph RESTful APIs. That's how the whole management part of the things work. Management and also the read-only part of the Ceph dashboard, the whole monitoring, non-metric monitoring part of the Ceph dashboard, everything goes through the Ceph RESTful APIs. Then the Prometheus federation for the normal Prometheus metrics collections. I would like to show a demo here before I just move on to the rest of the presentation, so that you guys know quickly on how this would look like. So I think people who used Ceph Dashboard, who haven't used Ceph Dashboard before, this is how it looks like in the upstream. It's the I think it's the main cluster. It's a developer cluster. I don't think it's the latest Squid. So we are not delivering the multi-cluster feature in Squid. It will be available in Tentacle. So this cluster is a Tentacle release or developer branch. So I have two clusters here, Ceph Dashboard, let's say Ceph cluster 1, and the another one is running over here. If you see the IP, it's on 110, and the other one is on 1100. And for the sake of speeding up the demo more faster, I went ahead and added the whole clusters here. So if you see on the navigation here, right, we have this new view here called multi-cluster. That's where all the multi-cluster stuffs are happening. So if you go to the manage clusters, that's where you can add more clusters into your into this particular hub cluster. So you will need to choose one cluster as your hub cluster. You can also have more than one cluster as your hub cluster, but the idea is that there will be one cluster which will be the hub, and all your other clusters will be connecting to this particular cluster, and from here you will be able to manage or monitor all the other clusters. So for now, I added one cluster here. I aliased it as Ceph cluster 2, but if you want to add more clusters, you can use this connect form. Basically, provide your API URL, the cluster API URL, or the dashboard URL, whatever it is. So you can just provide that here. You can also name your cluster. So instead of going through that FSID, name your cluster better here. Provide the username and password of the RESTful APIs. And you can also select the expiration, how long you want the token to live. Provide the basic SSL certificate if you want to. So you have to provide the SSL certificate here, and you connect the cluster. And once you click on connect, it will just add the cluster here. I don't think there will be any delay. The whole thing is immediate. So once you do that, the whole thing will show up here, and you will have a label called connected, which indicates the state of whether the connection went okay, and if there is something wrong there, it will show the state as something disconnected or something in error state. And you also have the ability to link and launch the cluster. So if you just click over here, it will load up the dashboard of that particular cluster. And that's the whole management part. And if you expand the details for this particular cluster, right, it will also have the Grafana dashboard, the basic details that are available in the main Grafana Ceph cluster overview panel. So we just show them for convenience here. And then we have what we have over there is the overview page. And that's where we show the aggregation. Like if you have many clusters, right? You just have to go to this overview page, and that will show the basic details of how many clusters you have and how the states of the clusters, how many alerts you have, and all those other stuff. So right now, whatever we put over here, it's kind of like evolved from a POC. So the whole UX still needs to fine grain. There are a lot of UX designs going on within the team. So some of them will be eventually decided and moved to the upstream, the tentacle, maybe the tentacle or maybe the next releases. But this is like a continuous effort that we are planning to release on top of the tentacle release. So and you have the capacity. The capacity will be the overall capacity, not just a single clusters. You will see the entire capacity. Like for now, I have like 2 single nodes, so it doesn't have many capacity. 20 GB on both of them. Like I think 10 on each of them. So yep, that's and we show some metrics here, and also the table that shows the entire clusters and its status and all the other stuffs, and some pool utilizations, just for getting some feedbacks on how you guys want to evolve this feature in the upstream community. That's the whole monitoring parts of this multi-cluster. And when it comes to management, if I go to this dashboard page, on the header, you guys can see that there is like an FSID and some name local cluster admin. For now, we have something like this one, like a drop-down here, which shows all the clusters that are connected to this particular instance. Not really nice right now, because if you have more than 100 clusters, right, this will be a nightmare to look at. So probably later on, what we plan to do is like to have a searchable or filterable items here, filterable drop down here, so you can search for your cluster using your name. Basically, what the idea is that you can just click on the cluster, which will just switch the whole view to the whatever cluster that I selected. So the dashboard will now consume from the REST API of the second cluster or whatever cluster that I choose, and that will show information from that particular cluster. As you can see, when I clicked on that one, it kind of refreshed all those alerts. So so every alert gets shown immediately on that cluster, and if you want to manage the cluster from here, right, you can just go to the pool and you can create some kind of pool here. I'll just create a pool here. Demo, and once I do this, actually this is getting created on the second cluster. So that is the kind of management that we have right now, but yeah, but we'll need to figure out how exactly that we want to evolve this feature in the whole community. But I'm hoping that we will get some feedback, nice feedback from the whole community to actually, progress on this whole feature. But that's the kind of like the status for the whole thing right now. So I think this is the whole thing. I think I will go back to the presentation now. So yeah, if you don't have any cluster added to the to this particular hub cluster, right? What you get if you go to the multi-cluster view, then what you guys will see is this particular view where you can connect more, or where you can just click on the connect cluster, and again it will ask the basic forms, and you can fill in the details over there. So yeah, I think these are all the things that I just shown you there: the whole status, the utilizations, the table over there, which shows the whole status, and then the pool utilization. So some charts that we just put around to show that this eventually we can include more metrics or more useful metrics from the Prometheus and just include it over here, so that it will be more useful to look at on a high level how your cluster looks like, and maybe even more metrics to be shown in this particular view, so that you will get immediate notification on when one of your cluster from the whole hierarchy goes down. So yeah, this is pretty much that one. Let me see. Yep. Now on to the RGW multi-site automation. So in the Squid release, we have added support for the multi-site setup. Basically, setting up or configuring the RGW multi-site from the dashboard. I think in general, configuring the multi-site is pretty much difficult. So that's why we went ahead and added that implementation in the dashboard. So it's like a form, or it used to be a form that, or it used to be a page that where you can create RAMs and or you can or create RAM zone groups or zones, or you can even migrate your single site setup to the multi-site setup. So, but over on the next release or the tentacle release, we are planning to integrate this into the multi-cluster workflow as well. So basically, what that will look like is that, this is just an overview page of the multi-site. So you will have this multi-site page where you have this multi-site replication button. From there, you can just go on to provide some details like the RAM name or zone group endpoints, some basic details like whenever you are configuring the multi-site replication. So provide the zone names, provide the username, that the system username that you want to provide there, and then you go on and create the replication cluster, basically the cluster that you want your data to be replicated. That's something that you are going to be selecting from here, and you review the whole thing. So it's like basically a 4-step process, and 1 step for review and 3 other steps for just entering the basic details. And just you configure, you hit on the configure multi-site set button, and that will start the whole multi-site process. So on the background, it does a lot of stuff, whatever it needs to set up the whole multi-site, like creating the RAM, zone groups, and all the other stuffs, and creating the users, and then associating that with the second cluster, creating the replicated zones and everything else, right? So those are all done in this particular step here. It will also show some logs here on what exactly is going on right now. So that's the multi-site wizard that we have right now. And over the time, we are also planning to add other integration, like the RBT mirroring or some other multi-site or replication behaviors here, so that it makes more easier for someone who is new into the Ceph ecosystems, right? So they can just use 2 or 3 steps to set their whole multi-site or mirroring or anything that they want to create simply. And we are also planning for the UX refinements, but because if you see over here, right, on the demo itself, right, that I showed earlier. So if you go, I can show them here. So yeah, if I go to any of the cluster right now, right, it doesn't really provide a visual cue on which cluster I am in right now, because that's pretty essential, because you really want to know which cluster you are in right now whenever you are making some changes onto that cluster, right? So I think those kinds of like minor UX things are missing right now. We only have this visual cue, like the cluster name at the top of the this drop down here. But what we want to do over here is to provide more visual cues and make it more. Whenever you are doing some destructive actions, we just have to make it more clear that you are on a different cluster and you should be careful when on doing those stuffs. And those are the UX refinements that we are planning. But yeah, the whole thing is still evolving. So let's see how it goes. And then the backward compatibility. Backward compatibility basically for because we tend to realize that most of these Ceph users are not on the latest versions. They tend to be on the oldest versions. So if we are providing this feature for let's say for Tentacle, right, it won't be useful for people who are in older releases. So that's partially because of the lack of backward compatibility within the Ceph RESTful APIs. That's somewhere we want to start with. So we will be providing backward compatibility to the whole Ceph RESTful API, so that we can eventually provide that backward compatibility to the whole management, the whole multi-cluster functionality as well. And the SSO, right now the authentication is basic. It's just username and password. What we want to do is integrate the SSO here as well. So you can just connect the other clusters using the basic the SSO itself. Some of the features that we, some of the improvements that we had done over the management and monitoring stack is the implementation of this management proxy and the OAuth to SSO. So basically, what it means that you have one. You can just create a management gateway proxy and OAuth to SSO containers. You can create that through the Ceph ADM. Once you have that, all your management stack and monitoring stack will be under this umbrella. So all your authentication will be going through this proxy. So you will have this one single SSO to basically authenticate into every other monitoring stacks and management stack. And we want to integrate that into this multi-cluster as well. So that's something planned for the future. I think that's about it. I've put some links here on getting more feedback on this whole thing, on not just the multi-cluster feature, right, on the entire dashboard. I know when it comes to big users, right, I think it's more common to have their own Grafana dashboards, and people used to do that. But if it's possible, we would like to hear more feedbacks on why or how we can improve the dashboard in the future, and maybe eventually, whatever you folks are doing manually, probably we can provide them out of the box from the dashboard itself or something like that. That's a wild idea that we have whenever we are discussing these kinds of stuff among us. So yeah, these are some meetings that we have weekly or monthly, the developer monthly, the users dev, and other stuff. So, and if you have any questions, you can always reach out to the Ceph Dashboard Slack channel. Yep, that's pretty much it from me. Thank you for listening in to me. Any questions?